Stop watering your garden. Seriously. Put the hose down, walk away, and let the plants come to the water themselves. What I'm about to show you is not a trendy gadget or a high-tech sprinkler. It's an irrigation trick that people used for millennia that can keep a patch of tomatoes happily hydrated for a week or more after a single refill. It's simple, cheap, and, if your plot is the right size and soil type, shockingly efficient. If you love digging up old solutions that actually work, hit subscribe. Archaeologists and agrarian historians trace versions of this idea across continents and across time. In Mesopotamia and Persia, there are signs of buried ware irrigation going back millennia, enough to justify calling the concept roughly 4,000 years old in some places. In Han Dynasty China, farmers described techniques that use porous vessels to store and dispense water. Later, Persian engineers adapted similar ideas for orchards and gardens. The pre-Columbian Hohokam in North America developed subsurface water management practices in the desert Southwest, and early American homesteaders reinvented variations of the same approach whenever Maine's water was scarce. The pattern is striking. Independent cultures discovered that burying porous clay near roots turns a small container into a low-tech, highly effective drip system. So how does a clay pot do the work that usually forces gardeners into daily watering duties? The basic physics can be explained without calculus. Terracotta is porous. Tiny open channels run through the fired clay. When you fill an unglazed pot with water and bury it in soil, the water doesn't gush out. Instead, moisture moves slowly through those pores by capillarity and responds to what soil scientists call moisture tension. Water is sucked out of the pot into drier soil, and that flow naturally slows or stops when the soil around the pot becomes moist enough. Think of the pot as a semi-permeable sponge that breathes water into the soil only when the surrounding roots need it. Plants themselves help regulate the flow. Roots grow toward moisture. When roots reach the pot wall, they take up water right at the source, keeping the local soil drier and maintaining the tension that draws more water from the vessel. In effect, the plant activates its own drip system. The drier the soil near its roots, the more the pot yields. When soil is wet, flow diminishes. No timers, no filters, no electricity, just physics and biology working together. This isn't just theory. Modern researchers have tested buried ware irrigation against conventional surface watering and even against some drip systems. Work by soil and water researchers, including figures like David Bainbridge, and trials run in arid research stations in the American Southwest, shows impressive water use efficiency gains in small plot settings. Some controlled experiments report water savings in the ballpark of 50–70% compared with surface irrigation, depending on crop and soil type. In trials comparing surface watering to subsurface clay pot irrigation, researchers also documented dramatic reductions in weed biomass. One example recorded weed mass measurements falling from the hundreds of kilograms per hectare range down to just a few dozen kilograms. Those numbers matter. Less water on the surface means fewer weeds and more of the water actually going into crops. There are other practical advantages. Subsurface delivery eliminates surface evaporation and dramatically cuts runoff. If you've ever watered on a hot, windy day and watched half the water vanish into air or puddles, you know how wasteful surface watering can be. A buried pot keeps water where it's useful, underground and immediately available to roots. It also lowers disease pressure in some crops by keeping foliage dry. If this works so well and for so long, why don't we all bury pots instead of buying drip tape and timers? The answer is not a conspiracy, it's economics and scale. In the 20th century, irrigation technology industrialized. Drip irrigation, plastic tubing with emitters, pressure regulators, filtration systems, scaled easily from market gardens to large farms, and became an industry with recurring revenue streams. Parts to replace, filters to service, upgrades to sell. For large-scale, high-value monocultures and commercial operations, drip systems deliver precise control and automation that pots can't match. For a backyard gardener, though, that precision may be overkill. A clay pot approach is a one-time purchase, or a DIY project, with minimal maintenance. It's resilient in the sense that if a pot cracks, you replace one pot instead of troubleshooting an entire network of clogged emitters. In short, drip systems are industrially elegant. Buried clay pots are domestically elegant. Each has the appropriate niche. All right, enough history and theory. Here's a practical, safe walkthrough so you can try this at home. Safety and materials first. Use unglazed terracotta or unglazed clay pots. Avoid glazed or painted ceramics that could contain lead or other contaminants. Don't use pots that previously held unknown chemicals. If you're in doubt, buy new unglazed pots. They're inexpensive and commonly sold at garden centers. Keep digging to your own property lines. Check local regulations before excavating in public spaces or near utilities. Materials you'll need, roughly. Unglazed terracotta pots. The size depends on how frequently you want to refill and how thirsty your plants are. A 1-2 gallon unglazed pot suits small beds. Larger pots hold more water for heavier feeders. A non-toxic seal for the drainage hole. Options include a clay plug, food-grade silicone, or a cork that fits. The goal is not to stop all exchange, just to prevent a free drain so the pot can act as an underground reservoir. A lid or saucer to cover the pot mouth after filling. This reduces direct evaporation from the top. A water source and a funnel or pitcher for refilling. Installation step by step. 1. Choose the spot. Place pots near the plant's root zone, ideally at the root's expected spread. For tomatoes, that means a pot between 2 plants or next to the main stem. For melons and squash, place pots between rows where roots will reach outward. 2. Dig a hole deep enough so the pot will sit with its rim at, or just below soil level. You want the soil to be in direct contact with the pot wall, so the hole should allow the pot to be packed in tight. 3. Seal the drainage hole. If you leave it open, the pot will simply drain into a pocket and won't maintain the capillary contact needed for controlled release. Use a clay plug or food-grade silicone to close the hole, but leave the pot porous elsewhere. 4. Place the pot and press the surrounding soil back in firmly so there are no air gaps between pot wall and soil. Roots need to touch the pot to reach the moisture. 5. Fill the pot with water and cover the top with a saucer, a piece of wood, or a tile to minimize evaporation from the mouth. 6. Plant as usual, or if plants are already in the ground, just position the pot near established roots. 7. Refill cadence. Check weekly in most climates. In hot, very dry weather, check more often until you understand how quickly your particular setup draws down. The goal is a low-maintenance schedule. Many gardeners find a weekly refill keeps a bed of vegetables going through a normal season. A few practical tips and caveats learned from modern practitioners and field trials. Sandy soils draw water away quickly, which can make pots empty faster. In heavy clay soils, movement through the soil slows, and you may need larger pots or a shorter interval between refills. For large or deeply rooted trees, pots are less practical. They're ideal for raised beds, vegetable plots, and small orchard starts rather than hectare-scale plantings. Watch for root clogging of the pot's mouth. Roots will grow into any convenient water source. If you need to clean or swap a pot, do so between seasons or during a planned downtime. What about crop choice? This method shines with thirsty, localized feeders. Tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, beans, cucurbits like melons and squash. Plants with dense root zones that can reach the buried pot. Root vegetables are less ideal, unless you place pots close to their root ball during bulking. For container gardens or raised beds, a pot doubles as a reservoir and a stabilizer, keeping soil moist where it counts. Maintenance is minimal but important. Avoid contaminant risk. Never use pots that held paint, pesticides, or other toxins. If you suspect disease, sterilize pots between seasons or replace them. If you're in a frost zone, remove water or consider seasonal storage. Frozen water can crack pots. Monitor for pests and for any telltale signs of overwatering. This method can deliver a lot of moisture in one spot, so allow good drainage and soil structure. Let's pull the threads together with a quick comparison to help you decide whether to try it. On cost, clay pots are usually cheap. A one-time buy or even a thrift store find will do. On maintenance, they're low. Refill, check, repeat. On water efficiency in the right context, they can be superior to surface watering and competitive with simple drip setups in small plots. On scale and control, plastic drip systems win for large beds, orchards, and operations that require automation. On resilience, pots are forgiving. No filters to clog, fewer parts to fail, easier repairs. A final word about why this knowledge faded from everyday use in many places. Agriculture industrialized, supply chains favored centralized, scalable technologies, and economies of scale pushed plastic drip systems into mainstream adoption. That shift wasn't about the pots being inferior, it was about different systems fitting different economic and agricultural scales. For a backyard gardener, a hobby farmer, or anyone in a water-limited location, resurrecting this simple, ancient trick can be a practical and sustainable choice. If you try it, treat it as an experiment. Keep notes: pot size, soil type, crop, refill interval, and yield or plant vigor. Share your results with the community. Variations matter, and local adaptation is how old techniques become new solutions. Try a few pots under a tomato trellis or between squash hills and compare them to a traditionally watered patch. Stop watering daily, in other words, and start letting moisture work for you from below. This is a technique that survived for thousands of years because it fit human needs: simplicity, thrift, and resilience. It may not replace every modern irrigation system, but for many home gardens it's a low-cost, low-tech route to more efficient water use. Try it, share your results in the comments, and subscribe for more practical rediscoveries of nature's lost vaults.